All right, so I've been really excited to be here, to be a part of the community, be able to do a lot of different things, not only as somebody at Intersect, but also as just a general member of the Cardano community, right? So for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Tex. I am the open source program manager at Intersect, and I've done a number of different things to reach out beyond that role and hear what you all in the community have to say, because that seemed to be something that was kind of bouncing off of a room with all white walls, if you will. So everyone was kind of echoing their own things, and I'm like, hey, I have the opportunity, and I feel that this role in particular is something that should really highlight what all of those opinions are, and if nothing else, give them a place to go. If that's just to me, or to direct them to the right people. So that's just about me in general. But I did want to get a chance to come up here and tell you guys a little bit more about the open source office, what we're doing at Intersect, and really how we're leading some of, or a lot of, in different capacities, the charge of where Cardano is headed. So what is the open source office? Basically where we sit is working on the different factors that ensure that the core of Cardano, the coding and everything, is actually open source, that it's accessible, right? We're meeting all of those different details. I don't have like all of the reports in these slides. I'm just trying to make it something that's quick and for you to look at. All this information is also on our Gitbook page. But at the end of the day, open, accessible, transparent, all of those keywords or buzzwords, if you will, that's what we're trying to make sure is in place, and that allows the community to come in, not only give us feedback, but continue to drive this forward. So. Yeah, I guess I led right into this, right? So why are we doing open source? We want to generate that community interest. We want your participation. And we really want to get that synergy going, right? So if everyone's, again, feeling like they're in that room just bouncing their own ideas off of themselves, then that's not really going anywhere. But if it's an actual really strong development conversation, then we want to get you in touch with those devs. Maybe you don't have the full level of technical experience. That's perfectly okay. There's different opportunities where a very business experience or even just a community experience is going to bring in a different element to what we're looking at. And the technical minds will understand how we can actually open that up a little bit further. So, yeah, that's a little bit more. And then, of course, highlighting the permissionlessness of the blockchain. So, the structure, if you don't already know, Christian Taylor, he's the head. He's been running everything. As far as I understand, he's been doing this for like the last 4 years. So everything that Jack and Nick have been doing together, Christian's kind of been moving up through that chain as well. And as Intersect got started, Christian took the lead of making sure that we were keeping open source a top priority here. I was able to come in and kind of start with a little bit of the analytical side of things, get those basic numbers out of the way. But that eventually turned into the program manager piece, where we've got a lot of different programs that we have going. So we have our developer advocates, we have our, what do you call it, we did a merit-based, or trying to figure out how open source was effective, right, if that was actually happening. And a number of other avenues that we're working with the open source committee on specifically. So the open source committee, although they're not pictured, they have a really unique place where they get to oversee basically anything and everything the open source office does. Even if it seems like it may not be their place to make a decision on it, they're at least advised, and they're able to provide their technical expertise with technical and non-technical. But we've been able to find and source a lot of key contributors throughout the blockchain and Web 2 and Web 3 spaces to come to the committee and really share and help us build and grow, so that this is moving at a pretty quick speed. Our developer advocates specifically, there's going to be another slide on them, but we have Saganya, Uday, Alex, and Bernard. And what you see on the other side here is the service providers and our strategic partnerships. So a lot of the data that you'll see as far as how we're open source, that's come from our use of Bitergia. We've actually partnered with them officially so that they are our official metrics partner, and we're working on how we can do better reporting, more consistent reporting, and other resources as well. So bring them up to the top, because there's a lot of projects, and a lot of these projects maybe don't understand how their open source is effective in their own rights. So we're really opening up the stage and giving them an opportunity that says, you can use any tool you want, but here's one tool at least to get you started. And so again, some of those same professionals that have helped us build open source and the open source committee, they also work for McCutcheon, and they're able to share some of that advice more directly. The service providers in November, so not too far away, we're looking at releasing our project support services. So what this is a project of any and every level theoretically can come to Intersect, to the open source office, and say, hey, this is my project, this is what I'm working on. I am working to build this open source to the best capacity that I can. It's basically like tell me what I'm missing, right? So there's some part of that that's an analysis that we would do, but most of it's going to say, I know I'm lacking here, I know I'm lacking here. It could be marketing, could be the strategy and sustainability, but we can directly address those pieces based on how the open source office in general has done it, but also with these other toolings, and I would call anyone that's a service provider a potential partnership in the future as well. So there's some quick pictures there. We do get, again, this information on our Gitbook page, but just because not everyone gets there all the time, I do want to give you just a quick little highlight. Bernard's in South Africa. Alex is kind of all around Eastern Europe. Suganya is actually in Canada, and then Uday is in India. So aside from just doing the outreach to developers and helping us to get some of these project support services underway, we're also looking at using their connection in the community to institute even more community hubs, right? And so that's that, again, open accessibility piece that we're working with at every level in the open source office. So just a little bit more about the workflow here. I kind of let this read through itself, but Christian, as you see, oversees the backlog, and every input that we have really goes into that. That goes into the reviewer. I guess I'm the backlog, right? But Christian has oversight once all of that comes through the stage, and we decide, hey, what are we really working on? Move that through, and then it becomes an OSA initiative that we push out. So at any point, because in a quick format presentation, it may not give you everything. We have our open office hours that we run every 2 weeks. We also have our open source committee meeting. Both of those are open to the public. Although the committee meetings are a little bit more structured, we welcome input basically at any time as long as it's relevant to the conversation. And if there's something that we're missing, because there often is, we're more than happy to at least hear that and address that accordingly. So, just a quick overview, our plans for 25, because they're kind of big. We did a lot of things here in 24. I was trying to maybe spotlight some more of that, but again, I could have a 20-slide presentation in this case. But we're looking to expand the governance and structure of what open source is doing, and that's really, again, bringing in that community input in every channel, any and every channel that we can. We're working on an accreditation program, so anytime you hear badging, NFTs, recognition, all of those different things, we're working on how do we do that from the open source side, because developers are probably, as much as they are the core crowd of how things happen, they're not always getting that high level of recognition, so we'd love to bring that to the forefront. Strategic collaborations, again, that's our partnerships piece, where we really want to elevate these providers who have a lot of experience in the field, bring those tools up to the forefront, and when we show that as a partnership with the open source office, not only does that strengthen or endorse the work or the strategy that we have, but that's, again, extending those tools to the wider community. So we'll go through, I don't have to read every bullet point here, but again, any of this, we're more than happy to go over at any time. The biggest thing about our 2025 outlook, this is our paid open source model concept that we're looking at here. So the idea behind this is open source works by having your maintainers and having everything move from an ideation phase to productization phase, and then how we actually get this to where it's a fully mature project. So a lot of the different key documents you may have heard about are project lifecycle framework, our incubation. Some of this we're still finishing. And then open source maturity, we're able to apply that to each and every different project or what might become a product. So that's the basis of it, and that's what we control under Intersect. But through the committee, through the developer advocates, through open source libraries, which we're building right now, really want to put that on a different stage and try to get a valuation on that, say, hey, where does this add value to the community? Push that out for commercial adoption for those that have the money that might want to bring this and put this on chains, that it is helping everyone. So there's a lot that's in here. There's a much better explainer video by Christian on our YouTube channel, but did want to at least highlight this because this has been a key focus in the background for the last couple of months, and something that we're really excited to get finalized. We should have a white paper that's out hopefully by the end of the year that'll explain that a little bit more in detail. And that again brings in some of the basis of Cardano, that academic peer review. So that's something that we're consistently pushing all of our documents through. But yeah, that's where I'm at, trying to keep that short and sweet. If you're not already, I think a lot of you are, but please do make sure to give us a follow at Intersect OSO on X, formerly Twitter, and then our YouTube channel. If you're not watching our YouTube channel, I think you should. We try to keep the content pretty short and sweet. The longest that's out there is like 30 to 45 minutes, but if you know anything about me, Christian, we're basically talking that whole time. So it really works in more of that blog or vlog style type of media there. So there's a lot of information that's in there. It's not just white space. But yeah, any questions? Nothing, not even one? Texted to Terence. Colin, what's up?
So how do you determine, like, when you go through and you say, we're going to have these features ready, like, is there a steering committee for that? Do you guys, or are you guys the steering committee? And
so I'm the secretary for the open source committee, but the open source committee is the one who oversees those decisions in a certain respect. Some of that is we work really closely with like the Hyperledger model. So a lot of different things that they've implemented from that perspective is things that we're implementing, but in our own rights. And what happens is, or what has happened, is that those are further developed by the experts that we brought into the open source committee to enhance them to be not only different, but in some cases just a little bit better. So I don't know that it applies so much to features as far as it does methodologies, and getting a little bit of a clearer scale on, again, where are you at in that incubation or that life cycle stage? Like, are you actually incubating, or are you experiencing a period of growth, or are you mature? And so our incubation document, when we get that out, should be a little bit clearer that way. But yes, the open source committee, again, we work pretty closely. So you see OSO, OSC, I know they're very, very similar, but they are because we work closely together, and they're not because we are separate entities. John?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the open source pay model that you had sort of shown up there, and whether potentially in the future that could result in some sort of a job board type of an application where developers could sign up, potentially companies could sign up, where you're looking for devs in the marketplace. Could that type of a model feed into a job board like that?
So I think I would best categorize that as you're reading the book before it's written. Not really, but no, it is written. So without getting too far into like a budget conversation, we do have what's called a maintainer-retainer program. The key piece of that is searching out and finding developers that have a varied level of skill. It could be new developers, it could be experienced developers, and it could be some who don't necessarily have to know Haskell, which is the primary one, but they may be skilled on another one. And some of that can be, I wouldn't say quickly translated, but translated in enough period of time. So the idea is in 25 with the appropriate approvals is to start bringing more of the community devs into the picture and get them integrating with the core development teams so that we can differentiate that even further and not just leave it to what was the 12 continuity suppliers, right? So we don't have to leave it directly to those companies, even if that number continues to grow. Again, we can further decentralize it, and that's the idea behind it. But yeah, that's the first level, is getting them paid. But how they get paid is, again, getting products out to the market that people want to use, so that there is input to that. There's a couple different versions of it. I think if you see some different screenshots, you'll see that the treasury is on there. But it's not really designed to involve the treasury at all. It's really designed just to be a cyclical cycle outside of that that funds everything. Yeah.
Following on that question, and it could be totally stupid, but at the same time, I'm going to ask it anyway. The archival of open source libraries, a lot of times in the past, I've experienced, and developers experienced, where they've been paid for something that was actually already open source, and they could have got it for free, when instead they actually used another lab and had it done, had the work done. It just didn't get connected right at the right time. It actually cost them money, which some cases operationally is a bad thing, right? So ultimately, archival-wise of open source software code that's already been written, things that have already been done, is there going to be some sort of resource that's going to be available or open for everybody to see? And then how are you going to make sure that everybody has access to it or knows where to go, for that?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. It's actually one of our newer developments that we have. So we just recently started the Open Source Libraries Working Group that is under the OSC. The OSC actually gave approval on that probably 3 or 4 meetings ago. So it's been a little while. It just took us some time to get it started. I would welcome anybody that has questions or knowledge or experience that way to come and bring that into the group. I think the current trajectory right now, or I know to an extent, we're looking to build off of the CNCF landscape model that they have. So we're looking to get our own instance up, I would hope, by early 2025, if not sooner. That's going to start to show projects that are not only connected to Intersect that are obviously all on Cardano, but yes, anything that's in that archival state, I mean, that would be just a different layer or section of that landscape. But we definitely do want to show it and highlight it. And if there's any point, one of the things that I or whoever I can bring to the picture is going to work on is to do a little bit of a deeper dive affiliation-wise, and if I can show kind of a growth pattern even of where they came out of these archive projects or where they came out of these other developers and they moved up into, again, the different status, DAOs, SPOs, DREPs, whatever, moved to a different tier, if you will, in the Cardano community. I'd love to show that trajectory from either a technical or non-technical space. So, cool. I've got one back here that I can come back to you. Yeah.
I just want to ask, so you mentioned that the Cardano treasury is not intended to be like a core part of the kind of revenue model. So my question is, like, say there's a piece of software that's intended to be like an end user product, but it inherently is not something that can generate revenue in like a commercial sense. What does that, how does that like fit? If say, for example, there's a DEX that has no token. It's intended to be used by end users, but it doesn't generate fees. How does that fit in here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know that I have the full answer on that right this second, but what I would say is it's going to come back to what I would call the open source nature of it, and out of the different tasks that they are doing, how much of that can be used, picked up, or whatever to, let's say, improve somebody who is at that level of tokenism, right? If there is somebody who's traded or fundable or valuable, maybe there's something that they are missing that this other DEX came up with or whatnot. So I apologize if that's not the full answer. Y'all probably already heard this from me, but I am actually brand new to the crypto and the Cardano space, about 6 months. But I'm constantly drinking out of a fire hose and trying to retain as much as I can. So.
That question is a good one because things have changed for us. So that's revenue change.
Right. Yeah.
So is there a with Terence talk about retaining model, but we can open source those changes for us, they can be maintained, especially whatever cost.
Yeah, I mean, a chain explorer can at least like have like advertisements or something like that.
Yeah.
But if I'm thinking it's more like on the infrastructure side, that's like also intended to be used by end users, say like on the client side, like on the desktop, not a web browser based type of thing. How do you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't generate money by its nature. So
Yeah.
Well, not, like, we're looking, so we're building a decentralized education system where there's a thing that the person builds a module, every time somebody runs somebody through that module, they get some sort of payment out of that. And if somebody uses an open source tool, it's on chain by the nature of it. Is there a way that we can put a transaction fee on that tool being used, where that goes into an account to maintain that tool and remunerate the builder who bought that, who built that tool?
What I'd have to say is that I think that anything is possible, because I think that's maybe pushing the boundaries a little bit from right this second. That's another reason why I kind of start off with where I'm at in the community and where I'm reaching out across a lot of the different channels that are going on. I'd like to make sure that, to an extent, any different group, working group, special interest group, whatever, is addressed in open source. So
We'll talk about it.
yeah, John, I think I got to run, but is it quick or?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask real quick if the Intersect open source committee or if this office is the area that might be the one that affects documentation within Cardano regarding the dev documentation, like the dev doc website.
Yes, so the open source committee directly oversees the governance, which includes the technical writing piece of it, and that's another aspect of our project support services as well. So we can definitely dive deeper.
Awesome.
Sorry, thank you, everybody.